Greetings and welcome to a quick introduction to functions with parameters. So what we're going to do is kind of look at what it used to look like. Our function, my function. This, remember, defines the function, and then you have a function call. So we're going to go ahead and pull over a new one, though, that says define a function with a parameter. So we have my function n. N is the parameter. All right, so if you look at it compared to the one below it, is just added an parameter, but like essentially a variable to inside the parentheses. So both of them still need to be called. If you want to call the one with the parameter, you call it with that. If you want to call the other one, you call it without the parameter. So let's call this function parameter. And I'll paste that in this one. And I'll just call the other one my function because it's just a function. So if we remember how this works, every time we want to call this function, and let's just console log so we can see it's actually do something. So it's going to, every time we call this function, it's going to console log down here. So we run it, we get an error. It is whining about n not existing. So I'm just going to put a number there for now, 10, and it's going to send 10 up there. So let's go ahead and reset this, run it. And you can see it says message. And that is this function right here in line 10. And then every single time I want my function to call, I can call it. So if I reset this and run it again, you'll see I get 3 messages. It comes up here, it runs this function, it comes here, and it just executes the code inside of it. So let's go ahead and get rid of the old function, because hopefully we all know how that works by now. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this new parameter concept. So in this case, I'm going to console log again. But when I do it, I'm not going to send a message. I'm going to send n. Right? This is the n that's here. So let's go ahead and run this, and it's 10. And that's because this 10 goes into the n. Right? It's essentially kind of like setting a variable, and then n is 10. So let's add a couple more to this. And again, we got to make sure they're all named the same thing. So function parameter. Let's send 15 this time. And let's send a variable, right? So I have my input 1. Let's send input 1 this time. So I can send a variable, and whatever the value of that is will get sent to it. So when I run it now, it's going to define the function. It'll set input 1 and 2. And then it's going to send 10. So it should console log 10. And it'll come down 15, console log 15. And then input 1 is 5. Send 5, so console. So I should see 10, 15, 5 when we run this. So 10, 15, 5. This allows us to run this function wherever we want and send a parameter to it. So a lot of these examples we're going to show you aren't super necessary, but it does allow us to get the input. For example, if we had a text box here, and I'm just going to call it input for now. And if we wanted to, we could get the input of this every single time. Now, if I add this right this second, if I add the text input right now, because it's not actually listening to a button, it'll just grab nothing and send it. So that is the gist of parameters. They can be whatever makes sense. So let's give an example of trying to figure out some kind of formula, right? So we're going to try to figure out what the total is for this. So I'm going to create a variable and throw it in here and do var total. We want to know what the total of x plus y is. So we need 2 parameters this time, and you can put as many parameters as you want into here. So I'm going to do x comma y, and now I have 2 parameters. I also have to send 2 parameters. We'll get to that when we update these in a little bit. But total is x plus y, and then we are going to console log total. So now we're actually going to do some math with it. So let's add some more to this. So 10 comma 15, 15 comma 25, and then let's go ahead and do input 2 here. So it'll take both of those and then put it into our function. So when I run this, again, it's going to define this, and we send 10 and 15. It is important to understand, this is why I'm showing it this way, that it's the order that matters. This is 10 and this is 15. So when we run this, 10 and 15, 20, 15 and 25, 15 and 25, 15 plus 25, 40, and then the input is 5 and 10, so 5 and 10. Now there are many times that you'll do something like this, where this is input x and this is y. So you've already defined these variables, x and y, and then you're going to come down here and send x and y. Now it is important to understand when you see this, so this is one of the big errors I see with students, is when you see this x and y and you call this x and y, that you assume that everything works out well. However, when I send it this way, y and x, when I send y and x, this is not x anymore, right? This x is not x anymore. It's whatever y is. So again, just because I send y and x doesn't mean that this x is equal to this x and this y is equal to this y. It's very important, right? So to summarize why I'm telling you this, it is the order that I send them. So if I send a 10 and a 15, this is 10 and this is 15. If I send a 15 and 25, this is 15 and 25. If I send a y and an x, this is going to be whatever y was, so in this case 10, and this is going to be whatever x is. It doesn't matter what you send them as, it's the order that matters. Now this is going to come up with the same ending result, but it's important to understand that it's the order that you send it down. And you can, again, add as many as you need. We could send 4 if we wanted to. It all depends on what you're trying to do with your console log. But that is the gist of this. I'll go back to 1 just as a review. So each of these will have 1. And then we'll just add 15 here. So we're going to go ahead and send the input 1 this time. We'll change this back to input 1. What's happening is it's still a function, except for it has a parameter that you need to, when you call it, send to it. And this allows you to do a lot of excuse me, a lot of different things as you're working through it. But this is how it works. So I'm sending 10, 10, 10 plus 15, prints out 25. 15, 15 comes up to x, x is 15, 15 plus 15, 30. Input 1, input 1 was set to 5, so it's essentially sending 5, this is 5, and this is 5. That's what's happening. So hopefully this is a good introduction to get started. Our next one we're going to go over is how you can return a value and how that works.